The latest news, weather, and sports, and stimulating talk. AM 1420, WBSM.
Welcome to Spooky Southcoast.
Look, I know the supernatural is something that isn't supposed to happen, but it does happen.
AM 1420, WBSM presents Spooky South Coast with your hosts Tim Weisberg and Matt Costa.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Spooky South Coast. Tim Weisberg here. There is no silent assassin, Matt Costa. There also is no science advisor, Matt Moniz. I am manning this ship all by myself. So whoever has to come in here Monday morning or Sunday morning and clean up after me is in for a lot of trouble here because something's bound to go wrong. Good evening. Welcome to Spooky South Coast, where we talk about the paranormal each and every Saturday night. Except for last Saturday night, we weren't here because we were at our Legend Trips event, Graveyard Shift at Slater Mill in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. What a great event it was. I want to say hi to all of our friends out there who attended that event. It was my first time investigating Slater Mill, and it was only my second time ever actually being there, and I'm still completely blown away by the place. I have to say it's one of the coolest locations I've ever been to, for both ghost hunting and for any reason in general. So if you haven't had a chance to check out Slater Mill for yourself, please do so at your earliest possible convenience. They have tours. They have ghost tours that they do, too, on the weekends. And they also have a variety of special events they do throughout the course of the year. So just go to slatermill.org, and you can find out more. You can also follow them on Twitter. They're on Facebook. All kinds of ways to get a hold of them. And, of course, Legend Trips is the company that Spooky South Coast partners with GhostVillage.com and Jeff Belanger to bring you, just the best in paranormal events. I'd have to say that, really. And I'm not saying that because, I'm part owner of the company and I have a financial stake. And I'm saying it because I think we're one of the full companies, one of the only companies out there that's a full service company. I mean, we make sure that you get dinner, you get lectures, you get something cool like 30-odd minutes live, which we taped at Slater Mill. I know live taped doesn't really work out, but it will when you watch it on 30-odd minutes in the upcoming weeks. And we also have hours of investigation with some of the more notable names in the field who are associated with the locations at which we are investigating. So to me, it's not about us. It's not about what guests we can bring. It's not even about you and the kind of good time that you can have. It's about the locations. It's about bringing these events to these spots and helping them out and showing them that, the paranormal community is a great community and that we can actually be worthwhile to let in and investigate. So, and Slater Mill's been great about letting paranormal investigators in, but you never know. It only takes one bad apple to spoil the bunch. We've seen that happen with a number of paranormal investigators over the years where something goes wrong or some group doesn't exactly, follow proper guidelines and procedures, and it ends up putting a dark stain on the rest of the paranormal community, and a place that was previously open to some groups is no longer available for investigation. And then sometimes you get a situation like Belcourt Castle in Newport, Rhode Island, where it was open for investigation for a while, and then somebody comes in and they don't want to allow it anymore. So by showing them that the paranormal community is a good group of people, and by also being able to put a check in their pocket, we can open up these doors for people and get you into some of these locations that you might not have been able to get into in the past. And we have another one that we just announced, believe it or not. I know it seems like we just finished the last one, but we're announcing the next one. But that's how it works with Legend Trips, because once you're part of the group, once you're part of the Legend Trips family, you get exclusive pre-sale access to our future events. And even if you haven't attended an event, you can get that pre-sale access by joining the mailing list at legendtrips.com. But we announced this week our Dead of Summer event on August 25th at the Lizzie Boyden Bed and Breakfast in Fall River. It's going to be our first time ever holding one of these events at Lizzie's in the summertime. Normally we do Dead of Winter. in February. But this is going to be in the same month that the murders were committed, the 120th anniversary of the Borden murders. And so I just know the house is going to be active, extremely active. And it changes the dynamic, too, when you're investigating in the summer as opposed to in the winter. With the atmospheric conditions, with the number of people that are coming in and out of the house on a daily basis, kind of charging up the paranormal activity. So it's going to be really unique and different having it in the summertime. But we put 25 tickets up for sale, as we do with all of our Lizzie Borden events, because fire laws prevent us from having any more ticket sales than that. And so in the pre-sale alone, about half of those sold out. And we're now down to only 4 tickets remaining. 4 tickets are left for Dead of Summer on August 25th at the Lizzie Borden Bed and Breakfast. And you can get them by going to legendtrips.com. They are $135. That is your ticket into the event. If you want to get a room, well, chances are probably slim at this point that you'll get one, mainly because we do a first-come, first-served basis. So once the rooms go up for availability, it's going to go to the first person who purchased tickets. And then if they don't want them, it keeps moving on down the line. There's only 6 rooms and 2 suites that will be available. So we're working out some deals with some local hotels, and we'll try to find a good spot where everybody can get together. Thank you, of course, to the Comfort Inn of Pawtucket for putting together a great package, a great deal for all of our Legend Trips attendees at Slater Mill last week. I stayed there myself, and I just had a great time. The place was awesome. It was just a nice place. It was half a mile from Slater Mill, so it was so nice, at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning to just have to go half a mile down the street before I could crash. And they were very accommodating, and it was nice to wake up in the morning and have breakfast with a bunch of our ghost hunting friends. So it's definitely a unique experience. Legendtrips.com is the website to join up and to find out more. So now that I've done that big, long commercial, let's tell you about what's going to be happening on the program tonight. We do have an action-packed show tonight. Even though I'm here by myself, I'm going to be joined by a number of guests over the course of the evening via the telephone. Coming up in the first hour of the program, we're going to have Captain Ralph Wilkins of the Nat Geo show Wicked Tuna. Now, a lot of people have been talking about this show, Wicked Tuna. They sail out of Gloucester, Mass., so they're pretty local to us, and Captain Wilkins is actually based on Cape Cod. But you might be asking yourself, well, what does a bunch of tuna fishermen have to do with the paranormal? We'll get into that in a little while with Captain Ralph Wilkins. And later on in the program, we'll be joined by Jennifer Lauer. You can check out her website in the meantime, braddyactress.com. She's going to be talking to us about a fundraising event she has going on Kickstarter to be able to finance 3 films that she's working on with her husband, Chris. And there's a good connection here to the Southcoast because Jennifer Lauer used to be known as Jennifer Adams, and she's a graduate of Wareham High, a native of Wareham. And her and I used to actually act together in the Wareham High School Drama Club. So we'll talk about that coming up a little bit later on with Jennifer Lauer. And then in the second hour of the program, and for the duration of the evening, we'll be talking with Jason Mayoh of Christian White of Haunted Rhode Island. Now, we talked about their first episode this past fall when they investigated the Ramtail factory and the Mercy Brown case for PBS in Rhode Island. Now we're going to talk about Episode 2, The Legend of Dolly Cole, which actually premieres next Friday, May 5th at 7 p.m. on Rhode Island PBS. And, of course, next Friday, May 5th at 10 p.m. on the Mayoh channel, you can watch My Ghost Story, featuring myself and Jeff Belanger talking about the Lizzie Borden Bed and Breakfast. So, so many things to promote, so much to talk about. We don't know where we're going to begin, but we will begin with Captain Ralph Wilkins of the show Wicked Tuna. Coming up in just a few minutes, of course, during the course of the evening, you can watch what's going on in the studio on Spooky TV at SpookySouthcoast.com. And I'm, like I said, working by myself here tonight, so if I don't get to the chat room, I apologize, but I do have it up. I can see it. I want to say hi to everybody in the chat room tonight. And you can always call in with your questions as well at 508-996-0500, 1-877-996-1420. Those lines will be open throughout the program. You can email us, spookycrew at SpookySouthcoast.com. I'll try and check those as much as I can. And as I mentioned, the chat room is also available on Spooky TV at SpookySouthcoast.com. Before we go to a break, speaking of Spooky TV, I've been in discussions with some people about some upcoming new programs. I know we say this all the time, and it doesn't always pan out because sometimes people have great ideas for shows, and they just don't have the technology to be able to pull them off. So we're hoping that we can work with a couple of people coming up here to get some programming on Spooky TV so that it can be more of a week-long thing for you instead of just on Saturday nights and Tuesday nights. And speaking of Tuesday nights, I want to say congratulations to Tiffany Rice, the host of Spirit Connections, on her recent 1-year anniversary. I was there along with Spooky Southcoast's Matt Moniz and Andrew Lake and Carlson Wood. Jason and Christian from Haunted RI were there. Stephanie, of course, is there every week. And we had a great little first anniversary show and party there at Wareham TV. And then I took them over and showed them the Fearing Tavern. So that's another place that we're working on, a Legend Trips event coming up. So stay tuned for that as well. All right, well, why don't we take a break? When we come back, we will talk with Captain Ralph Wilkins of the Nat Geo show Wicked Tuna. You've seen it on the National Geographic Channel for the last few weeks. We'll talk with him about the little bit of a paranormal connection between tuna fishing and the world of the supernatural, as well as some of the other questions that people have been asking about this show, about going out there and fishing for these bluefish tuna, which one of them recently set a record for the sale price of a tuna, and you're not going to believe the amount that it sold for. I mean, really. This is like, catching this fish is like winning the lottery. And we'll talk with Captain Wilkins about that coming up in just a few minutes when we return with more of Spooky South Coast.
AM 1420, WBSM, with Total Body Wellness, every Tuesday morning on The Pete Braley Show. Join Rainey St. Laurent to Pharma Health as he covers a wide variety of topics designed to make you feel better. How to handle the side effects of certain vaccines, how to reduce the risk of breast and prostate cancer, how to sleep better, the benefits of vitamin D, and many more topics. Your host is a registered pharmacist, a board-certified clinical nutritionist, as well as a doctor of natural medicines. Total Body Wellness, every Tuesday morning at 8:25 with Pete Braley on AM 1420 WBSM. AM 1420, WBSM, where Sunday mornings are where you need to be. Start the day with the Garden Guys at 9. It's Senior Moments with Ray Lance Jr. and Peter Lance of USA Wealth Group. At 10, Make It Happen with the MIH Radio Show. And Sunday morning at 11, join Dr. Mark McGowan for Secrets of Living Healthy. Sunday mornings on your station for news, talk, and sports. AM 1420. WBSM. More conversation, less confrontation. The Mike Huckabee Show.
Don't ever miss a single edition of the Mike Huckabee Show. We're going to have a whole lot of fun talking the big issues of the day. We'll talk to the newsmakers and the issues that made them a newsmaker, as well as we'll bring you some entertainment, some fun. You never know what's going to happen on the Mike Huckabee Show. Don't miss it.
The Mike Huckabee Radio Show. Weekdays at 1 on AM 1420. WBSM.
All right, welcome back to Spooky South Coast. Tim Weisberg here, flying solo for the night. I guess you could say that I am the captain of this ship, but joining us on the line, we have an actual captain. We have Captain Ralph Wilkins of the show Wicked Tuna, airing on the National Geographic Channel Sundays at 10 p.m., and it's a hit. I mean, people are talking about this show, and they're talking about it for a variety of reasons, so let's get into all of that with our guest tonight, Captain Ralph. Good evening, Captain. Thank you for joining us on the show. We're wondering here about just the life of a tuna fisherman. It seems to me like it's a real boom or bust type of life, that you're going to go out there for quite a bit of time and hope to make pretty much all the money you need for the year in just a short period of time. That must be a crazy way to live.
Yeah, it's you can't really go to a bank and try to get a mortgage and tell them you're a tuna fisherman. I don't think they're going to lend you the money. There's a lot of bonuses and a lot of detriments to the business. I mean, the workplace is an unbelievable place to go to work every day. But like you said, financially, it's a roller coaster. It's feast or famine, and either you're the hero or you're the zero.
Well,
it's an emotional. It's definitely an emotional business.
Speaking of feast, I mean, what's the typical size of one of these tunas that you reel in? These bluefish tunas.
Well, what's been happening over the last 25 years is the biomass of fish size has been changing. It seems as if there was total devastation over the last 10 years of the middle size. The 3, 4, 500s kind of disappeared, and we blame it. The U.S. fishermen blame it on the Mediterranean because they were, in violation of the ICAT rules and regulations for conservation for a number of years, and they kind of wiped out that whole age group. So now what we see is either fish that are just becoming keeper size, which are 73, 74 inches, which weigh about 200 pounds. There's a good body of those size fish, and then there's also, towards the fall, we've been seeing some extra large fish. Some of the grandpas are still around. So, but the fish stocks, they've been rebounding. We've seen a lot of smaller fish, and I believe the conservation efforts are starting to work. So we're optimistic.
Well, in talking about the conservation here, there's a lot of controversy about the show Wicked Tuna, and part of that is that people feel that these bluefish tuna are overfished, and I thought I read somewhere, too, that they're on the world endangered species list, but not the U.S. endangered species list. Is that true?
Well, there's been a lot of, conservationist movements to try to shut the fisheries down, and the stocks, seriously did decline over the past 25 years. But, in the U.S. here, we've been conserving for a while. It's really been, the problem's been overseas with some of the third world countries. There's such a big market in Japan that, people become pirates. But from what I see personally, being in the ocean, and we understand scientists have limited data. They sample a portion of the ocean, and then they multiply it by vast numbers. And they're not out there every day. So, guys in boats like myself, I'm out typically, on a year, could be 10 months. We're out at sea more than we're at land. And, we kind of get tuned in with the environment. And we're seeing that there's a lot of tuna fish around. The tuna fish are definitely not endangered. We definitely went through a serious time where they were threatened. But I think we got a good handle on it right now, and the showing up of all these fish, 72, 73, 74 inches, within the last 4 or 5 years is a really good sign that the stocks are rebuilding.
Well, now I know I can go to the pond across the street from my house any day and catch about 50 sunfish, but nobody wants those. With these tunas, what's the typical haul when you make a trip out to sea?
Well, we have a limit right now. The government gives us limits. When there's an abundance of fish, typically we're allowed 1 tuna fish per day. Okay. So it kind of makes it difficult to be very profitable. I mean, you have to go in and out each day. Sometimes the trip's 50, 60 miles, so it's around-the-clock operation. You're traveling at night, bringing your catch in, flipping the boat around, getting out to the grounds by the time the sun comes up. But with the way the fishing was the last couple of years, and with the government also takes into consideration, I believe, the cost of fuel and the cost of operation of the vessels. So they've been letting us take 3 a day. So in other words, if we're going to travel 50, 60, or even 150 miles sometimes to George's Banks, at least they're allowing us to retain 3 tuna fish. So, the bottom line, the net profit to the boat makes more sense with the catch limit of 3.
Now, with that catch limit, I mean, is there a big discrepancy in how much one can weigh, or do they all typically kind of grow to about the same size?
Well, no, there's no restrictions on what we can catch weight-wise, but typically when you're fishing in an area or on a herd or a school of tuna, they're all the same. They're like cookie cut, they're all the same size. If you move 5 miles down the edge, you could be in a different school with a different size. So, but they range anywhere from 200 to, I was watching one of the shows on tonight, one of the reruns, and Kevin on the Christina had one that was 1,060. So, there's some big fish around, what we're going to catch, what bites on the hook, that's something that we don't know, and, you could be fishing, hoping to get a 600-pounder and catch a 200-pounder, but, the way I look at it, it's the size of the check, not the size of the fish, because some of these smaller fish, the check, you can get $18 for a 200-pound fish, or you can get $8 for a 400-pound fish. To me, being a commercial fisherman, it's the size of the check, not the size of the fish.
Well, that's one of the things I was going to ask you is, doesn't it have to do with the quality of the fish that you're catching, too? Isn't there a way that you can actually judge, just the meat itself before you've even got the fish?
I mean, you know what? Even beef purveyors, I mean, if you go to a supermarket and you're a steak eater, you know what a good steak looks like. You want to see marbling, you want to see fat. And bluefin tuna is, in my opinion, a lot like a steak. It's not very fishy to taste. It's red, and it does have marbling and fat. And a good tuna fish, if you catch a lot of them, you start to know what they're looking for. You need oil, you need shape, you need color, and you need fat. And, typically the earlier tuna that come up from swimming from their breeding grounds typically burn all their fat during the trip. So most of the fatty fish come towards the end of the year. They're a little lean when they first get here from, using all the energy source to migrate. So once they're up in the North Atlantic feeding in the cold waters, which the reason that they come here, they fatten up, and you'll start to see as the season progresses the improved quality in the fish and the prices. So what we have to do as a fisherman is since we can't not fish, the season opens in June, so we want to fish, but we do a cost average, and by the end of the year, we typically average about $10 a pound. But it may start as low as 3 or 4 in the spring and go as high as 18 or 20 in the fall. But overall, basically, you're looking at a $10 average.
Well, I saw somewhere online where there was recently a record tuna that sold for $736,000.
Yeah.
And what would it be that would make it such a valuable fish?
Well, number one, that was probably caught on a Japanese vessel. So, and Japan typically has these fish in January. To me, they're symbolic fish. Maybe a person of statute makes that purchase. It makes the news. It's like a promotional type of thing. Mm-hmm. I think it's more than that than the realistic value of the tuna fish per se. I think it's more of a symbolic purchase. I mean, we've Dave Marciano has a $24,000 fish. I have had a $14,000 fish. I mean, there are some big price tags, in a career. But typically, on the average, it's a $10 average. And that's the only misconception that people think with the giant tuna fish, that, it's like catching a lottery ticket. But, you can string a couple good ones in a row. You can make some change. But, the operation and cost of running these vessels these days with the cost of diesel fuel has just been astronomical. And if we look back 10 years, we were paying 80 cents a gallon for fuel and getting $10 a pound. And here in 2012, we're getting $10 a pound and we're paying $5 a gallon for diesel. So our cost of operation has increased over 500%, and the cost of the fish hasn't increased at all. It's been pretty flat. So, the fisherman is just another dying breed in this country. It's, the economy is not helping us at all. Mm-hmm. And the whole energy crisis has really become a critical thing for the fishing fleet.
Well, even if the fishing industry is being crippled right now, one industry that's not suffering at all is reality television. So I can see where the hybrid comes into play there. Now, one of the things that we talk about on the show, well, what we talk about mostly on the show is the paranormal, and we talk frequently about some of these paranormal reality shows, and we know some of the stars of these programs, so we look at the behind-the-scenes kind of stuff. And with the fishing industry, how has having a camera crew along affected what you guys do on a day-to-day basis?
Well, for me, it was a difficult task for me, and speaking about paranormal and stuff, I do a lot of fishing solo. The show has me with a mate, but that was pretty non-typical for me, other than for the long offshore trips. I like to fish solo, and I bring the spirits with me when I fish solo. I mean, sometimes I'm the only boat out on the edge, and if you've ever spent a night on a 31-foot boat in the middle of the ocean, when the sun goes down, it gets pretty dark. So, I'm a believer that they're there. I have my guardian angels with me, and it's been quite interesting, being out in the environment all by myself in a situation like that. The danger, living on the edge there, it thrills me.
Well, I can just imagine. I wrote a book about some of the local ghost stories here in this area, and being, I live in Wareham, so I'm very close to Cape Cod, and
right.
We have many stories about ghost ships that are always spotted out there, and I can just imagine, when the sun starts to go down and it starts to get dark, that thought kind of does creep into the back of your head, seeing some of these old ships that we hear stories about.
Well, let me tell you, it's not for everybody. I mean, not alone on land can some people not be alone. I mean, being out 30, 40, 50, 60 miles out in the ocean by yourself on a boat. I mean, if you don't have some self-control and mental abilities to stop your mind from wandering, you could really beat yourself up out there. But, I'm in tune with the spiritual world, and I have no problem relating to them, and I know they're there, and I take them with me, and they've been all good, good things for me. They've protected my back. I often say that if I don't almost die every year fishing, then I didn't fish hard enough, and I think I've used more than 9 lives already, so there's got to be somebody else helping me out there.
Now, with this program and the way that things are going, I mean, it seems like the different crews are very competitive with one another, and I'm assuming that that's how it is in the business of fishing as well, that you're always competitive with each other, but actually the captain of the bounty hunter is one of your best friends, right?
Yeah, Billy and Donna, they're sweet people. They're really honorable and trustworthy. And you don't find that in this industry very much. The old-timers used to tell me, leave your friends at the dock because, when you untie the lines, you really have no friends. I found that not to be true with Billy and Donna. They're friends, at the dock. They're friends in the ocean. But I can't say the same for many of the other of us. We're all out there trying to feed our families, and if you can bring the only fish to the dock that day, you're going to get paid more money. And the bottom line is there's some real competition there. And I got to tell you, this reality show is real. There's, I'm watching it as you guys are watching it. None of us have seen it before. And as I see it play out, it's as real as it is. I had a policy on my boat that there was no, if this is reality TV, there's no doing over. You guys get it the first time you get it right. And it worked out well. They sent me some good camera guys, and it was a little difficult working with them in the beginning, but when they finally got this guy River for me, he never got between me and the fishing pole, and that was the most important thing. Those are my tools. Those are the extensions of my arms, and you can't separate me from my arms. So once we understood that, the camera kind of slid into the background, and we got back to going to work like a normal day. Although
I'm sure that there was some degree of getting the production crew acclimated to being out on a boat in the middle of the ocean too. I'm sure there were some green faces and some guys heaving over the side for a while.
We each only had one guy, and what the challenge for the film company was to get the guy that was talented enough to do sound, camera, and production all at the same time. Because remember, we're not actors. We don't perform. So, for them to get what they needed to make this show, there was a certain amount of coercion by their producers in order to get the answers that they wanted, for the questions that they had.
Yep.
And they found, they went through quite a few guys, I got to tell you. The first couple of weeks were a little rocky. I didn't have a camera guy right away, and Kevin on the Christina I think he had 6 camera guys before he got one to stick. Guys who were just getting seasick, and it's not a typical environment. My guy had to sleep on the floor because we only have 2 bunks. So the mate had 1 bunk and I had the other bunk, and the cameraman was just left on the floor. So they were dedicated professionals. I got to tell you, whatever they earned, and I don't know what they earned it.
Yeah, he's sitting there thinking, I'm making $11,000 to sleep on the floor, and you're getting $11,000 to fish. What's going on here?
Yeah, well, like I say, this tuna fishing, it's feast or famine, and you're either the hero or you're a zero. And every year is different. We're seeing some good shows from some good boats this year that the year before weren't doing that well, and next year, God willing, we get the renewal with Nat Geo, and there'll be new heroes and new zeros for next year, I promise you.
Excellent. Now, when will you find out if there's going to be another season? Because shouldn't you be preparing to ship out pretty soon? Won't they have to know?
Well, you know what? We're getting ready already. The boats are already in the water. My boat was just put in the other day, and that's a corporate decision from Nat Geo and Pilgrim Films. They're both very good at what they do. We're really honored to be working with such great companies as those 2 big shots there in Hollywood. And I guess it's just all a numbers game, They're just watching the numbers, making sure that the viewers are going to stay around and that they like it. And I think it's a great show. It's more than a fishing show, that's for sure.
Take that, what's this, Charlie Moore Outdoors? Take that, you can't
well,
do it.
There's so much reality TV today, and there's so much outdoor programming that, there's a lot to compete with. But if you look at, Nat Geo's commitment to this show with its marketing and advertisement and the creativity of Pilgrim Films, I just can't see it not happening next year. We're all waiting for the phone call, but we haven't gotten it as of yet. But in any case, June 1 will be around the corner here, and we'll be tuna fishing. So we'll be either tuna fishing with the cameras or without the cameras. That's what I know.
Excellent. Well, we've been able to get some of the stars from Pilgrim's paranormal shows involved with some of our events. Maybe we'll find a way to get you guys involved with some stuff too.
Yeah, well, you know what? It's great to do all kinds of radio shows, and I like to talk to all kinds of people about my experiences out there. 10 years ago, it was a lucrative fishery. We were making some money. We would have never thought about telling the world our story. It was a very private story. You could go out and make a living in a couple of months. It was a nice way to make a living. So it was very private for a number of years. People used to frown upon you if you brought another friend into the business or another boat showed up. But, all that's changed. The economy's changed. It's, guys that are just relying on fishing for a living. It's been hard on us. It's, there's fewer and fewer of us. And, hey, reality's such a big thing right now, and a bunch of us are getting on in our age, and we just said, hey, you know what? I think it's time to show the public.
Yeah. Well, we're glad that you're doing that.
Yeah, well, we're happy to do it. And, you couldn't have cast a better five guys. I mean, we're five characters. Everybody's a little different. I got to tell you, it is competitive. You're seeing real time stuff, and it's something to have a friend at the dock and then you have to turn your back on him in the ocean because you have to eat. So I mean, if anyone can really see through what's going on here, it's serious business.
All right, well, again, the show is called Wicked Tuna. It airs on the Nat Geo channel Sundays at 10 p.m., and, of course, it's also available on demand as well. Thank you very much, Captain Ralph Wilkins, for joining us, and please stay safe out there, and we'll talk to you again sometime down the line. Hey,
thanks for having me. Yeah, call us up anytime. We'll be glad to jump on your show and give you an update.
Sounds great, and I look forward to eating some of the tuna that you catch.
Yeah.
I'll be down the market getting some this week to throw it on the grill.
Very good.
Thank you so much.
All righty. Have a good night, all.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, again, that is Captain Ralph Wilkins of the show Wicked Tuna on Nat Geo, Sundays at 10 p.m. And check it out if you haven't seen it already. I do love the fact that we're able to bring people into this program that, may not necessarily be in the vein of the paranormal world, but we just like to look at it as we think that we have a pretty cool show. We know that we definitely have a cool audience, and so we like to bring them cool people and cool topics. And I'm seeing some of the discussion in the chat room as well as it's going on. So it's interesting to look at some of the other things. And I think it's fascinating to me to talk to some of these other paranormal reality shows and see the differences between the way that they do things and the way that the paranormal world does things. And we heard Captain Ralph mention the fact that they had to find the right people to film the program and to be out there with them on the ships. And we know from talking to cast members from Ghost Hunters and Ghost Hunters International and that this is a similar thing that's happened on those programs, being able to find the right fit of crew with that. In some cases it works, in some cases it doesn't. But clearly things are working with Wicked Tuna because the show is a smash success, and it's brought a lot of controversy as well, which, when was the last time we heard about a reality show bringing controversy, right? That's not something we don't talk about here all the time. Well, I noticed that there was some discussion, too, in the chat room on Spooky TV at SpookySouthcoast.com as well about Graveyard Shift at Slater Mill and some of the different things that were happening there over the course of last Saturday night. We will be putting up a page on our website on legendtrips.com in the coming weeks where we compile a lot of the evidence that was captured. But in the meantime, go to Facebook and check out the work of Frank Grace and Trig Photography. He's the official photographer of Legend Trips events, and you got to see this guy's work. Oh my gosh, is it amazing? And we had him film, taking pictures of the event, and some of just his candid shots of what was going on during the course of the night are just superior to some of the work that you see elsewhere. And he also does the HDR imaging photos, which are just crazy. When you look at some of the shots of Slater Mill, of the wheel pit, of the Sylvanus Brown house, all these different cool shots that he's taken, and he has a natural eye to be able to find a way to make the photo look that much more interesting and that much more creepy. And it definitely plays into the vibe that was going on that night. So check out Trig Photography. You can find their website, too. I believe it's trigphotography.com. But the pictures are also up on Facebook. And of course, Frank said anybody that's gone to the event and finds a photo of themselves that he took, feel free to download it and keep it for yourself. And if you want to contact him through his website or through his Facebook page. You can order prints of the work as well. You're going to want these things when you see them. I mean, I just, looking at Slater Mill in some of these photos, it's just, bam, that's the way that I felt last Saturday night. That's the vibe captured in a single shot. So, and personally, I had a few strange experiences there. Definitely some, I was positioned mostly in the Wilkins machine shop for the night. And I definitely felt some strange sensations, especially walking from one end of the room to the other. And we had some interesting sessions going on with the Shack Hack. We had some people getting some hits on their meters. And we had a lot of people who were sensitive or had abilities. Of course, Pam Padalano was there and Tiffany Rice, our resident psychic and spirit mediums. But they were kind of reporting ominous feelings separate from each other. And they all seemed to be gravitating toward the same spot. Stephanie Burke was there as well. And she was able to also feel the same feeling. So there's a lot of these little things start adding up. And I know it's hard in that style of investigation when you've got 20 people in the room at one time all trying to investigate. It's really hard to collect good data. If you have an EVP, you have to worry about if somebody was whispering in the background. There's a lot of possibilities for contamination in the evidence. But when people are having the feelings, when they're having the personal experiences, that's what matters to me. That's what I look at as people taking away, because now they've gone and they've researched and investigated this legend, and they've become part of that legend. So even though the data may never be what might convince somebody else that the paranormal is real, that ghosts do exist, it's a chance for them to become part of the story and to become part of the legend now of Slater Mill. So next time we have an event there, we're going to be sharing the stories that these people experienced during their investigation of Slater Mill. So it's kind of, I don't know, I just find it to be very fascinating how the folklore and the mythology of it are influenced by the people who are there doing what should be considered scientific research. So one goes hand in hand with the other, and they are not mutually exclusive. So that's going to be the same way that we do things at the Dead of Summer event 2012 on August 25th at the Lizzie Boyden Bed and Breakfast. It's a week before Memorial Day, Labor Day weekend, I believe. So it's one last big summer fling if you want to get out there and check it out. 4 tickets left, and I'm going to guess that by the time the show goes off the air tonight, those 4 tickets are going to be gone. But you can go to legendtrips.com to check and see. And fear not, if they sell out, we will be having more events at the Lizzie Boyden Bed and Breakfast and other places as well. We're talking about some really, really cool locations and cool guests and cool events that I can't talk about just yet because they're still in the planning stages and nothing's official. But if we get to do these, they're going to be just phenomenal events. I'm looking forward to it. I'm getting giddy with anticipation of going out and taking part of these events. And they are just a great time. I love getting out there, meeting the Spooky Southcoast fans, meeting the 30-odd Minutes fans, meeting the Jeff Belanger groupies. Believe me, there are a lot of them. I wouldn't have believed it myself either till I saw it firsthand. There are a lot of them. There's even, if you can buy this, there's Matt Moniz groupies. And then they meet him in person and they're like, oh. So it's kind of fun to see that look of disappointment just grow on their faces when they meet the science advisor for the first time. Nah, I'm just kidding. But everybody does want to meet the silent assassin, Matt Costa, and he doesn't usually make it out to these events because he works on Saturday nights now, but I think people are starting to question whether or not he actually exists. I think they're starting to question whether or not, he's not Bigfoot or some sort of cryptid, and he's elusive. So I promise you that he is real, and we will get him out to one of these Legend Trips events sooner or later. But until then, just take my word for it. All right, we're going to come back coming up in the second hour after the news. We're going to talk with Jennifer Lauer, who is an actress who grew up in Wareham and got her start in the Viking Theater Company with yours truly. And we're going to talk to her about her new films and her Kickstarter campaign to fund them. One of them is a thriller and will be right up the alley of this crowd, of our audience. And another one is actually a vampire-based web series. So you're going to want to stay tuned to find out more about that. And then later on in the bottom half of the hour, we will talk with the gang from Haunted RI coming up in just a few minutes here on Spooky South Coast.
First with local news, talk, and sports. This is WBSM New Bedford, AM 1420. WBSM, a Cumulus station.
From ABC News, I'm Chuck Severson. Weather chaos and casualties in St. Louis have doctors and cleanup crews busy right now. A storm erupted. Police believe lightning struck and killed a man, and a 50-mile-an-hour wind gust blew apart a tent where Cardinals fans gathered near Busch Stadium. ABC's Sean Balint in St. Louis.
At one post-game party in the shadows of the ballpark, powerful straight-line winds caught a post-game crowd by surprise in a beer garden tent, blowing away that tent. 17 people in all were hospitalized.
A few in critical condition. Farmers are racing right now to protect their crops as forecasters predict a possible deep freeze tonight from the Great Lakes to New England. Police are examining carefully the elaborate underground bunker in the woods east of Seattle, where hours ago they blew off the top and found the body of the man they believe was Peter Keller, a self-described survivalist suspected in the shooting deaths of his wife and daughter. ABC's Neil Karlinski in North Bend, Washington.
Police are proceeding cautiously. They're worried that he may have booby-trapped this bunker. There could be explosives inside, so they're taking their time going through it.
President Obama drew laughs, taking swipes at his opponents, the media, himself, and Congress minutes ago at the annual White House Correspondents' Dinner.
I've tried to be civil, to not take any cheap shots. And that's why I want to especially thank all the members who took a break from their exhausting schedule of not passing any laws to be here tonight. Let's give them a big round of applause.
And Mr. Obama alluded to that photo of his Secretary of State after Latin American summit business, spending time with her staffers.
4 years ago, I was locked in a brutal primary battle with Hillary Clinton. 4 years later, she won't stop drunk texting me from Cartagena.
An annual black tie event, the annual White House Correspondents' Dinner in Washington, just wrapped up a few minutes ago. You're listening to ABC News.
The Home Depot has made a special buy on Scott's Earth Grow mulch. 3 bags are just $10. It holds its color all season long without fading. It's just one of the many special buys on spring essentials at the Home Depot, where you always get more spring per dollar. A beautiful garden that stays that way starts with 3 bags of Scott's Earth Grow mulch for only $10. More saving, more doing. That's the power of the Home Depot. U.S. only. See store for details.
Every so often, the stars are in perfect alignment, and during the Lincoln Certified Pre-Owned Sales Event, now is that perfect moment. For a limited time, get 0.9% APR on the certified pre-owned Lincoln of your choice, which comes with the confidence of our 6-year, 100,000-mile comprehensive warranty. The Lincoln Certified Pre-Owned Sales Event, exclusively at your Lincoln dealer. APR varies by term. Not all buyers will qualify for Lincoln Automotive Financial Services limited term financing. Take delivery from dealer stock by 4/30/12. See dealer for qualifications, limited warranty, and complete details.
On the night before the one-year anniversary of the U.S. raid that killed Osama bin Laden, Republicans say President Obama is politicizing the event to use it against Mitt Romney. ABC's David Curley in Washington.
The Obama campaign used the vice president to hammer home the point, using bin Laden's name 12 times.
Osama bin Laden, bin Laden, bin Laden, bin Laden. I will kill bin Laden.
Biden raised the question.
On this gut issue, we know what President Obama did. We can't say for certain what Governor Romney would have done.
Sure, it's the anniversary of the president ordering the raid that killed bin Laden, but analysts proclaim the president is basically untouchable on national security. Our latest poll gives him a 7-point advantage over Romney on terrorism.
Law enforcers in Mexico have now joined the search for that 6-year-old girl who disappeared from her Tucson, Arizona bedroom a week ago. Police not yet calling it a kidnapping. At Indiana's Fort Wayne Airport,
emergencies happen, and I'm glad they landed safely.
Shirley Anderson was there at the airport after a safe emergency landing because of an electrical smoke smell on the American Eagle flight from Dayton, Ohio to Chicago. Mechanics looking into the problem, nobody hurt. Steve Jobs was planning a Willy Wonka-like contest.
In a world of pure imagination.
A new biography of the late co-founder of Apple says Jobs wanted to put a golden ticket in the 1 millionth iMac sold. Just like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, whoever got the ticket would get a tour of Apple headquarters and a refund of the Mac's purchase. This is ABC News.
Do you have unfiled tax returns or owe the IRS or state more than $10,000? If you don't take action now, your tax problem is only going to get worse. Seizure of property, bank levies, wage garnishments, and potential criminal prosecution. Call the experts at U.S. Tax Shield for help at 1-800-334-5070. Our tax advisors will review your case for free, inform you of your rights, and give you a guaranteed quote. And we have an A+ rating with the BBB, so get protected. Call U.S. Tax Shield now at 1-800-334-5070.
Chuck Severson, ABC News.
Thank you, and we're back. You know, when it comes to fighting crime, he's never going to roll over. He's McGruff the crime dog.
Roll over. You're okay, Joy.
Thanks.
And I got 2 words to make your neighborhood safer.
Uh-huh.
Coffee cake.
Ah, the old poison coffee cake trick. The cook takes a bite, falls down to the ground.
No, it's for your neighbors.
You want to poison your neighbors?
No, never.
Oh, thank goodness.
No, for 25 years, I've been giving tips about preventing crime. One of them is to invite people over for a cup of coffee and share the problems you see on your street and what to do about them.
That's great.
You can invite your local police officer to help, too.
You know, I hear they're very fond of donuts.
Oh, that's just a myth.
Oh, well, I'd come to your doghouse for coffee cake in a safer neighborhood.
Now you're talking. You can cut down on crime by not just locking your door, but opening up to your neighbors.
Still, a 10-pound bundt cake dropped on a bad guy's foot could help.
It couldn't hurt. And going to weprevent.org for other tips could help, too.
A message from the U.S. Department of Justice, Crime Prevention Coalition of America, National Crime Prevention Council, and the Ad Council.
AM 1420 WBSM, where every Saturday, Taylor Cormier starts the day with local talk and open phone lines. At 9, it's Money Matters with Jose Matos, or Today's Woman with Dr. Gagliardi and Deb Soares. Then at 10, you'll hear all about cars with Ralph Medeiros. Begin your weekend with the station for news, talk, and sports. AM 1420 WBSM. AM 1420 WBSM thinks our hardworking teachers should get the recognition they deserve. Most go above and beyond to see that area students receive the best possible education. We ask your help in paying tribute to those outstanding area teachers. Log on to WBSM.com and nominate a WBSM Bank 5 Teacher of the Month. Tell us why one teacher deserves this honor. Each month, we visit a classroom and present the award. The class wins a Domino's pizza party and tickets to Ocean's 18 Blacklight Mini Golf. And the teacher gets a special plaque from Dartmouth Gifts and Engraving, flowers from Treeland Nursery, a delicious cake from Cold Stone Creamery in Dartmouth, a gift card to A&E Jewelers, dinner compliments of Advanced Eye Centers, and a gift card to the Ruby Room, the Teacher of the Month, with Bank 5 and AM 1420 WBSM.
Welcome to spooky Southcoast.
Look, I know the supernatural is something that isn't supposed to happen, but it does happen.
AM 1420 WBSM presents Spooky South Coast with your hosts Tim Weisberg and Matt Costa.
Welcome back. Hour number 2 of Spooky South Coast. Tim Weisberg here. No silent assassin, Matt Costa. No science advisor, Matt Moniz. Just me, myself, and I. That would be myself and my 2 favorite co-hosts. Welcome back to the program where we talk about the paranormal each and every Saturday night. We had a great discussion in the first half of the program with Captain Ralph Wilkins of the Nat Geo show Wicked Tuna. And while we're in a Hollywood kind of mood tonight, we're going to bring on an old friend of myself and a new friend of the program. And you probably heard me talk before about my limited acting experience in the past, especially when we did a few live radio performances here, when we did the Possession of the Church here in our old-time radio show episode, and then when we had the War of the Worlds reenactment, which I recently talked to some people who had just heard that for the first time and thought that we did a good job. So I must have done something right. So I haven't been able to do much with my limited acting experience, but somebody who has been able to is our guest tonight, Jennifer Lauer. Good evening, Jennifer. How are you? Welcome to the show. There we go. How about that? Let's try that.
Oh, hi.
Now, all my years of AV experience that you saw firsthand, you know that they were all for nothing because I can't even turn on the phone correctly on the radio.
Well, I was like, wow, he's really quiet right now. I hope it gets a little louder.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to do this job, on my own here because for the first 6 years of the program, I just told Matt Costa to do everything. I'm like, no, I don't have to worry about that. You're always here. You just do it. And then we get nights like tonight where I'm kind of stuck doing it on my own. So
solo.
And you don't have to worry about doing everything on your own. At least you've got a good crew ready to help you make these films.
I hope so. I mean, we are definitely have some really cool people who are involved, and we have a few more that we'd like to add on to the group. But yeah, right now we have some really neat people. Our DP, George Sue, is really just shot a feature film last year called Blood Relative, which is a horror film that's supposed to be released this year. And Christopher Tin, who's our music advisor, he just won last year 2 Grammy Awards for his album Calling All Dawns. So he's going to be helping us with music and a whole slew of other great professionals.
Now, the project is called 3 Films, 3 Days, and you're funding it through the crowdfunding website Kickstarter, which we've talked about here on the show in the past with the WBCN documentary, and they were able to raise the money that they needed to go forward with that film, and they needed $104,000 to go through with their film, and your films, you actually need a lot less than that. So hopefully our audience can help you get that tonight.
That would be amazing. Yeah, we're looking to make $11,000 for all 3 films, so it's essentially about $3,000 per film for the budget of each short film.
But we only have a few hours left to raise the rest of that money.
That's right. We're at 14 hours to go, and we're just past 50%, so we are over halfway there by all of the generous backers that we've received so far, but we're definitely looking to make our goal in these next 14 hours.
Now let's talk a little bit about these 3 films because, as we said, they are very different from one another, but they also would have a pretty good paranormal vibe to at least one of them for our vampire fans out there.
That's true. That project is called Draculette, and it's a vampire satire. It's kind of got its own little story about vampires. It's not exactly like any other thing that has completely original vampire lore. Mm-hmm. I mean, certain parts of it are the same, but it's basically a vampire with an eating disorder. She is afraid of blood.
That's like Chris Balzano was a vampire. It's a shot at our show's content director. But there's got to be a way when you're thinking, when you're putting all this together, you've got to find a new direction to go with vampires because right now they're just, I don't want to have a bad pun here, but they're being done to death.
Yes, exactly. And, I wrote the project 2 years ago at kind of the height of the Twilight, True Blood, Vampire Diaries. I just thought it would be funny to kind of make fun of all of this dramatic vampire stuff going on. So this is supposed to be more of a comedic take on all of the serious vampire lore going on. So we just thought it would be funny, what if she couldn't make the kill? What if like blood freaked her out? Because there are lots of people who are afraid of blood.
Sure.
Or like they don't want to get a shot,
And there are a lot of people who, can't be around it when they're alive, and I'm sure that would carry over in the afterlife too.
Yeah, exactly. We were thinking, what if that's just her phobia, and then, it's not necessarily her choice to become a vampire, and, so that's kind of what we're exploring. And there's we developed an entire season around these characters, and it's really fun. It's a really funny show.
And as a web series, it would be something that you would release through your own website or through its own website or YouTube? Or?
Yeah, probably to start, we'd probably release through YouTube. We're looking, once we shoot the pilot, to sell the rest of the season and get investors to make the rest of the show. So maybe it would go on one of the web channels like, Crackle or something. Mm-hmm. So that's what we'd be looking to do.
it seems like that's really kind of the future of television, because TV shows that are out there, they're putting so much money into these reality programs, and scripted dramas and comedies are just falling by the wayside. Everybody's watching, the shorter version films on YouTube and on, some of these other Vimeo and these other sites.
It's true. I think a lot of things, people are watching things on their phone or their iPad. A lot of it's going online. So I think also keeping shorter, content is the way of the future. At least, there is something to relaxing and watching television in your home. And everybody has these big, huge TVs now. But, everyone's also starting to hook up to Netflix or other streaming. So, shows like Portlandia, I think, are kind of starting that future of, filming these short little shows that they can put onto online content.
Sure. But that being said, though, too, you also have a feature film as one of these projects.
Yes. Royalston, with the campaign, we'd be shooting the teaser for the feature. So that one would take place in rural Massachusetts. It's a thriller. It's kind of a gritty story, but more based on the psychological aspects of the thriller. And that one we would plan to shoot in Massachusetts when we do the feature. The teaser will shoot in LA, and the plan is to use the teaser to get funding for the feature, because the feature is probably, we're hoping to get some name talent and, shoot it for maybe $5 million. So we'd be using the teaser from the Kickstarter campaign to pitch to bigger investors and to possible name talent for actors and, big name people for crew, and et cetera.
Sure. And there's also another short film that's part of these 3 films, 3 days as well.
Yes, and that one's called Fallback, and that is a relationship drama. That's kind of our indie festival plan for that short. And it's basically about the phenomena of being in a relationship and breaking up, and then the fact that you go from being, knowing someone really well and becoming a stranger. And how it's such a strange thing that happens all the time in life, and it happens over and over again.
It happens to me all the time on this show when my co-hosts go away for a while and then they come back and there's a whole new dynamic. And
you're very sad to be alone right now, aren't you?
I kind of am. I was looking forward to. I was with so many people last week at our Slater Mill event that I could probably use some alone time. But you look forward to seeing the guys. Moniz, whatever. I have to see him all the time, but Matt Costa, I don't get to see him that much, and he was just out your way not that long ago. He was out doing a cross-country drive, so I wish we had spoken before he left, and I could have had you show him some cool LA sights. Yeah,
there are a lot of really cool things that I think people miss when they're doing the tourist trap stuff.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that you're going to be filming the teaser for your feature in LA, because having been out there, I'm like, where are you going to find out that way that looks like Massachusetts? You're going to have to start driving north for a couple hours at least.
Yeah, we're definitely looking in, we have a few places up in Topanga area that we are looking at, and there's this awesome Indian reservation that actually kind of has a little bit of the feel. But I think that's why people shoot in LA, because there are so many different scenic places to shoot. There's the beach, you can go to the mountains, there's the desert. You can kind of get every look. But yes, that is a challenge, but there are a few places. If you have a really good location scout, that will really help.
Well, and it seems like you've got a good crew put together for this, but of course there's still room for the people listening out there to get involved with the project by donating through Kickstarter. And I was looking at some of the incentives that you have up there, and it's pretty interesting that for a $5,000 donation, you can actually get the chance to be a executive producer on these films. That's nothing to sneeze at.
That's right. That is our big save the day incentive. If someone wants to come in and basically get us to our goal right away, they get to be executive producer on all 3 of the films, and of course they get an IMDb credit and a pass to any festival that any of the films go to. They can come to any screening, and also there's lots of fun things. They get DVDs and signed scripts, etc.
So if you're looking for a shortcut to get yourself into the movie business, there's no easier way than that.
Yeah, exactly. And for people who don't have that kind of cash, there are a couple other cool ones. For $25, you can get your name in one of the films. of your choice. You can choose from the 3 films and get your name in the credits. So there is another option if you don't have the big money, but I would love for that one person to come down and save us and get us to our goal.
I wonder how much it would cost to have you write in a character of like this really crazy scientist guy who always flakes out and doesn't come into the radio show. You could call him, I don't know, Moniz. And
let me think on that one. I'll have to get back to you, but we have quite a few episodes of Dracula that we still have to fill in with lots of cast members. So
if it's somebody that could just get bitten and used and thrown away, that would be a perfect perfect role for him.
I think we can make that happen.
There you go.
I think we might have a deal going on here, Tim.
But the important thing is that people can donate any amount. Even if they just want to donate a few dollars, they can still get involved and show their support for your work.
That's right. Any amount over $1 is welcome. And, sharing it with their friends or, it's definitely a collaborative thing. We're in touch with our backers all of the time. We're doing updates, video updates, and also we're planning on continuing that throughout the process of filming. So you get a real inside look at all of the films.
Well, it sounds like a great project to support. The website is Kickstarter is the main website for the crowdfunding campaign. And is there a link on your website, brattyactress.com?
Yeah, there's a link on brattyactress.com. And when you go on a Kickstarter site, it's a little bit hard to navigate. You just click on Discover Projects, and then in the search bar, you can put 3 space films, space 3 days, space days. You can't just put, it's not a smart search, so you can't just put 3 films, 3 days as one word. You have to separate it all out. But 3 films, 3 days in the search bar of Kickstarter or brattyactress.com. I have a link.
All right, so only a few hours to go, so pull out your credit card, make a donation, help out, get these films made, and help fund what will be some of the next films that people will be talking about. And as I was saying earlier in the week, we'll have maybe our second Oscar winner from Wareham.
That would be awesome. Thanks so much, Tim.
All right, thanks for joining us, Jennifer Lauer. And again, the website is brattyactress.com. You can find the links. Keep us up to date. Let us know how it works out.
Thanks so much, Tim.
All right, take care.
Good night.
Bye-bye. I just press buttons here until, there we go. All right, again, as I mentioned earlier in the show, that is Jennifer Lauer, who I knew as Jennifer Adams back in our high school days. We were actually in, if I think about it, I know we were in one production together of the Marx Brothers Coconuts that never actually made it to the stage, but that's a story for another night that we'll get into some other time. Maybe, maybe not. All right, why don't we take a break? When we come back on the other side, we will talk with Jason Mayoh and Christian White of Haunted RI about their new episode 2 of the series. Will be airing next Saturday night, May 5th at 7 p.m. on the Rhode Island PBS station. It's about the legend of Dolly Cole, and I had never heard of the legend of Dolly Cole until I watched the episode earlier this week. And I got to tell you, this is a very, very fascinating case that our own Andrew Lake is actually well-versed in, as well as Spooky Southcoast favorite Tom D'Agostino. They both appear in the episode with Jason and Christian investigating the legend of Dolly Cole. And we will talk with them about this episode and about the series and about what they see happening going forward. And we'll find out more about what we can expect from the guys from Haunted RI. And we'll talk about some of these cases. And I'm going to put these guys on the spot, too, because they've got, after having seen them last week at the Southcoast Paranormal and Psychic Fair last Saturday morning, and then speaking with them again Tuesday night when we taped the 1-year anniversary episode of Spirit Connections, Tiffany Rice's show that airs on Spooky TV on Tuesday nights, I was talking with them about some of their thoughts about the paranormal and about these legends and mythologies of New England, and especially Rhode Island. You know, these guys really know their stuff, and I think that it doesn't come across as much in the episodes because they're just the documentary filmmakers. They're the ones who are just documenting other people's research, and they're asking the right questions, but they're not really getting into a lot of their own thoughts and theories about the paranormal. So we'll put them on the spot. We'll talk to them about all that coming up in just a few minutes when we come back with more here on Spooky South Coast.
If you think I'm all wet, please tell me where I'm wrong.
Mike Gallagher can be skeptical.
There's something wrong here. I'm not buying it.
Oh, it's going to be a great day.
All right. Welcome into the Mike Gallagher Show. Great to have you along for the ride. Other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play? Sorry that noise distracted from the dialogue of our American cousin, Mrs. Lincoln.
Don't let it spoil your evening. The Mike Gallagher Show. Listen.
The Mike Gallagher Show, every weekday at 9 on AM 1420 WBSM. AM 1420, WBSM, and WBSM.com, where all the news is free. Get the latest regional, national, world, and local news by listening or by logging on to WBSM.com. No subscription fees, no credit card needed. Tune in or log on anytime, and the news is all yours. AM 1420, WBSM on the radio and online at WBSM.com. AM 1420, WBSM, with Total Body Wellness, every Tuesday morning on The Pete Braley Show. Join Rainey St. Laurent to Pharma Health as he covers a wide variety of topics designed to make you feel better. How to handle the side effects of certain vaccines, how to reduce the risk of breast and prostate cancer, how to sleep better, the benefits of vitamin D, and many more topics. Your host is a registered pharmacist, a board-certified clinical nutritionist, as well as a doctor of natural medicines. Total Body Wellness, every Tuesday morning at 8:25 with Pete Braley on AM 1420 WBSM. AM 1420, WBSM, where Sunday mornings are where you need to be. Start the day with the Garden Guys at 9. It's Senior Moments with Ray Lance Jr. and Peter Lance of USA Wealth Group. At 10, Make It Happen with the MIH Radio Show. And Sunday morning at 11, join Dr. Mark McGowan for Secrets of Living Healthy. Sunday mornings on your station for news, talk, and sports. AM 1420. WBSM.
All right, welcome back to Spooky Southcoast. Tim Weisberg here, all by myself. No Matt Moniz, no Matt Costa, but I'm sure they'll be back next week. We've got a whole bunch of shows lined up here in the coming weeks, including coming up in a few weeks, we're going to be having Derek Gunn, who runs the Amazing Massachusetts website. We're going to be talking with him about some of the legends of Massachusetts. But we have joining us on the line two guys who are very knowledgeable in the legends of Rhode Island, and they actually put together a program called Haunted RI. Joining us on the line, we have Christian White. Hello, Christian. How are you doing tonight?
Hey there, Tim. Thank you very much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure.
Oh, we're glad to have you on. And joining us also is Jason Mayoh as well. Hey, Jason, we've had you on the show to talk Haunted RI before.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me back, Tim. How's everything?
Oh, it's doing well. We are spooktacular, as always. So even though I'm fine by myself here, and you guys know what it's like. You guys are both tech savvy. You know what it's like to feel like you know how to put something on, and then the minute everything starts trying to come together, that's when technology fails and the bottom falls out.
We know it too well. Yeah, I was going to say that's kind of the story of our life, and probably pretty much every creative life, I would imagine, at this point.
Well, let's discuss the just the wave of interest in Haunted RI. It started with the first episode, which focused on the Ramtail factory and the Mercy Brown case. And that was, I think that kind of shook things up in the paranormal world a little bit, because you did it a different way. Instead of just going out there and investigating, you had Brian Hanwha along with you, who, of course, was on Ghost Hunters and Ghost Hunters International. But instead of just focusing on the paranormal investigation and the data that comes from it, you really delved into the legend and the mythology around these cases. And to me, that's what made it a standout program, because it wasn't just about the history of a haunting as much as it was a sociological history of Rhode Island.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what was interesting for us was to kind of show how research is done. I mean, we talked to experts and historians and tried to come up with where these stories sort of originated and how they kind of evolved over the years.
Well, Christian, I know that in talking with Jason, he had an interest in the paranormal for a long time, and of course he was associated with TAPS Paramag and he got to know some of the gang from Ghost Hunters ahead of time. But how'd you get involved with the paranormal world?
Tim, I grew up in a profoundly haunted house, and that definitely opened up my belief systems for the supernatural. And going through the rest of my life, I would kind of find that typical thing where all roads and all the other creative pursuits of my life kind of led back to the supernatural. And as Jay was mentioning, and as you mentioned, for this particular project, Haunted RI, part of what was really appealing and interesting really was kind of looking into stories themselves and the mythologies that surround these hauntings. Ghosts live or die in the stories that are told about them, and the stories themselves, when looked at, kind of do more than just represent the ghosts per se, but kind of empower them and can actually be the fuel that drives them and recreates them. So that angle of it, the supernatural, whether it be ufology or hauntings, I mean, it's endlessly fascinating, and it's a rabbit hole that once you step into, you can really never get out of, I guess.
It really is, and it's strange how you mentioned, it seemed like everything in your life was leading up to this, and the synchronicities throughout life, and for those who are involved in this and who feel compelled toward it, it's strange when you look back and say, oh, yes, I can see. That's why this happened. That's why this happened. That's why people have always been telling me these kinds of stories. And with the stories that you guys are telling, at least in the first couple episodes here of the series, you're doing justice not only to the legend and to the paranormal aspect of these legends, but you're telling the complete story of who these people are. And I'm in the Dolly Cole episode especially, you weren't just content with going along with the legend as we've heard it, and you actually explored the different possibilities of who Dolly Cole was and why these stories that we hear don't necessarily fit. Jay, when you're doing the research and when you're talking with people, do you find that sometimes you have to deviate from what your intended storyline might have been for the episode?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and Dolly Cole was a name that kept sort of popping onto our radar. And one of the first stories we came across was that she was a murdered 27-year-old. That was sort of debunked quicker than some of the other myths, but then we heard that she was a witch. So, you go into wanting to start a project with all these ideas of where they're going to, what the outcome's going to be. And I think that's what makes this new episode so interesting is there are all these stories associated with the name Dolly Cole, and more often than not, there are some factual historical truths to them.
Now, Christian, growing up in Rhode Island and going to school and talking to people, I mean, how prevalent was this story? Because, as I mentioned earlier in the show, it's something that I had never heard of, and I've been talking to Andy Lake and Tom D'Agostino for years. So, I mean, was this something that's always kind of talked about in hushed circles around there, or is it a pretty popular story?
No, it's actually interesting that you bring that up, because I think Jay would agree. Part of what originally interested Jay and I in the Dolly Cole myth was simply the name. The name Dolly Cole had a particular ring to it. Mm-hmm. And I'm somebody that, the way I look at the supernatural, and especially the investigation of the supernatural, is you should really attack the way we understand and investigate this stuff on multiple levels. If something about the name Dolly Cole had a kind of a psychological effect on me, that's something that there's something to that. There's a power to that, and a lure to that. And Dolly Cole, I mean, is really in my opinion, the kind of prototypical Rhode Island legend. As Jay was saying, that there's numerous. There's such morphology to her story. She was a vampire. She was a ghost. She was a murdered 27-year-old transvestite prostitute. She was, et cetera, et cetera. And it's 100 years of legends that have built off of, I guess, a story that started perhaps in 1893. So to go back over a century of legends and kind of untangle them, a century of stories, untangle them, it was a huge process. But it really is indicative of, especially here in Rhode Island, how stories spread and why they spread and what they mean and why these types of stories are
because there really is more layers to it than just what we're hearing. I mean, a lot of what might be the true story of what happened, or a lot of, it might not necessarily be this Dolly Cole character that we think of, but it is possible that there was a 27-year-old transvestite prostitute who was murdered, and whose spirit is still there, and that over time the story gets warped a little bit. And I think Tom talks about that quite a bit in the piece too, about how the story gets warped. But what's interesting to me about it is the fact that it does pick up little bits and pieces and becomes more of an amalgamation of other legends, and legends that actually carry through from different regions. Like we talk here about the redheaded hitchhiker of Route 44 in Rehoboth, Massachusetts, but there's redheaded hitchhiker legends all over the roads. Every road has some sort of hitchhiker legend along it.
Yeah, what's interesting too is Dolly Cole. I think Christian had done some research and found that there was a Dolly Cole in Florida. We don't know the particular details behind it, but just an example of, state by state, you'll find these motifs.
Yeah, like there's so many Bloody Mary versions of the Bloody Mary story.
Right.
This could just be another version of that. But when you're able to actually go back and find what little research you can about it, that kind of verifies what people are telling you. But the strange thing about the Dolly Cole case is you really can't find much documentation about it.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. For a story that has so many roots and so many strains, when you trace it all the way back as far as you can, to its source, it's kind of amazing just how ambiguous the reality of Dolly Cole becomes. And sorry, Jason, I interrupted you there.
No, well, the other thing too, what's pretty interesting is, once you kind of go through the different stories and put the names to the actual characters, what does remain is the ghost stories themselves and the actual personal apparitions, the personal sightings that people have seen over the years.
Mm-hmm.
So we were able to kind of, I think, put Dolly Cole to rest in a sense, but that lingering sort of question of, well, who's haunting? Who is a character that's haunting these woods?
Yeah, exactly. You're able to dispel some of the myths about it, but that just opens up that door to trying to figure out exactly who it is that you are dealing with.
Yeah.
Right. Foster, Rhode Island, Tim, as you know, Foster, Rhode Island is an absolute petri dish of the supernatural. I mean, you have some of the most incredibly arcane stories and ghosts and apparitions and supernatural phenomena that exist in this one small town in one small state. And there's such a varied, amazing evolution of stories there that really using Dolly Cole kind of as, like I said, the prototype story of Foster, and using Dolly Cole, the myth and the legend, to kind of represent a bigger truth about the fabric, the psychic fabric of Foster, Rhode Island, and really everywhere for that matter. We found it to be really indicative of kind of a bigger story, something more about why we tell these stories, why we have these experiences. It's something that to me is fundamental to the understanding of the supernatural. So doing this documentary, Legends of Dolly Cole, I know Jason and I really kind of opened a lot of new doors for ourselves in terms of our understanding of the supernatural in general.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that, Christian, because in some of the discussions that we've been having over the past week, I was kind of thinking along those lines. There's a portion in the program where I forget if it was Andrew or Tom, but somebody was talking, I think it was Andrew, was talking about how, excuse me, that Foster hasn't changed much from how it was in Dolly Cole's time, and that it's still very much that same rural community that it was back then. And I wonder if what you think about the idea that either areas that tend to stay the way that they have been for a long time, or that play particular to their history, someplace like Salem or Plymouth, if that isn't helping to foster, no pun intended, the paranormal and the hauntings in that area.
Jason, go right ahead. I'd like to hear your perspective on that personally.
Oh, well, I mean, I'd say definitely it's one of the other people that are interviewed in this show is Pat Morgan, who is pretty much a lifelong Foster resident.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the fact that Foster doesn't change or hasn't changed, it gives way to years of storytelling and passed down traditions, and the land itself. One of the other things that Andrew has heard, perhaps it's cursed land.
Yeah, the cursed earth theory, Tim, I know that you're aware of it, as I'm sure a lot of your listeners are. It's certainly a theory that really carries a lot of weight for me. I remember having, I think it was Andrew who once said to me, how is it that a house can be brand new? You can build a brand new house and it can be haunted. Well, it's because the house isn't haunted, but the land is.
Mm-hmm.
When that kind of understanding dawned on me, it really kind of, again, changed the way I personally look at investigating a lot of these types of events. I absolutely believe that you can cross the border into Foster, Rhode Island, and you can just sense something's different. You can feel a current, a psychic current in Foster, Rhode Island. As a lot of towns and a lot of places you go, you can get this sense of its history, and the history actually having a visceral, physical sense that transcends just an intuitional feeling. Foster, Rhode Island is an absolutely fascinating place. If anybody out there is interested in exploring the idea of haunted places, for instance, Foster is an absolutely wonderful place to start.
But there are also these places too where it might not be just that aspect of the history of the location and how closely tied in the modern era is to that history. It could also be that there could very well be these hot spots of paranormal activity because there's a reason for that. There's some sort of energy epicenter there, and maybe Foster is one of those places.
Yeah. I mean, the more I've personally looked into ley lines and energy tableaus, I've started to realize there's probably a lot of validity, at least into that there's certainly a valid point of researching that. I don't know, Tim. What do you think? I mean, do you find what does it say to you? I mean, what do you think about stuff like that?
I think personally that it's probably a psychological byproduct of the people who live there. I think that when we talked about the Bridgewater Triangle here for numerous years, and we talk about the high crime rate, the high amount of mental disorders, the high amount of criminal mental disorders, when we look at all those numbers combined, we say, well, the land has an effect on the people. But I think over time, too, the people are also creating that atmosphere themselves. So the more that we wallow in that, the more we're just perpetuating it as years go by.
Yeah, it's Ouroboros. It's the snake eating its own tail. You're absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just in as much as I think an experience with what we culturally know as a ghost, I mean, half of what your experience is what you bring in, and half of what it brings to you. I think you meet supernatural experience halfway as a human being. And part of the ability to do that is the basic fundamental tenet of that is having an open mind. If you're open to experience, there's something to be said for. There's a possibility that you're more apt to have an experience. And so yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I tend to think that just as if a tree falls and nobody's around to hear it, doesn't make a sound. I think that if a ghost is there and there's nothing there to perceive it, and that doesn't have to be a person, although I think people help it. It could be some sort of device, some sort of camera or recording equipment. As long as there's something there to perceive it, it can happen.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, 100%.
So, of course, the hard part about that, though, is when you're trying to document these stories and you're trying to put together these legends, you do have the skeptics who will watch it and they'll look at somebody and say, well, I don't really necessarily believe what they're saying, which is an issue. But it seems like in both the first episode and in this one, you've been able to find people who come across as very credible. And I almost think with a guy like Tom D'Agostino, who has had these experiences, it's almost so commonplace to him now living in a haunted house that you kind of lose the effect of what it must be like to see one of these things, because he just says it in a very ho-hum way.
Yeah, that's pretty funny about Tom. Yeah, when in this episode he actually recounts his first paranormal encounter that sort of got him into it, and he thought at the time it was the ghost of Dolly Cole. But yeah, I think we've gotten to know Tom over the past few months. He's a great guy, and just like we said in the first episode, his life is consumed by the supernatural.
Yeah, Tom D'Agostino and Andrew Lake, I have to say, I just want it said that if you were to look for people out there that are absolutely on point in terms of not just their understanding of the foundations and the fundamental elements of the supernatural, but on point in terms of as researchers, journalists, investigators. I mean, Andrew Lake, for instance, I mean, he is one of the most meticulous minds I've ever come across. And Jason and I'm sure I can speak for Jason, we certainly, I don't think, would have been able to get as far as we did in terms of untangling a lot of this mythic material without the incredible, intelligent work and efforts by Tom and Andrew.
And I think to the casual viewer, across the world, people in other parts of the country will look at the work that they do and say, well, there must be somebody like that regarding every haunting in every area. There must be somebody who's that much of an expert. And that's really shortchanging Andrew and Tom and just their careers, because they are unlike anybody that I've ever dealt with in terms of how well that they get into the story. And it's about more than just the story itself. It's about the after effects of that story to those who experience and those who hear it in the years after.
Yeah, Tim, I really believe if you're really serious out there and you're serious about having an understanding of the supernatural, there's nothing casual about it. You shouldn't go into this with a kind of a light touch or a casual sense. I mean, you really got to throw yourself all the way in, as you know. You've got to make it a commitment, and in all ways, it kind of becomes a full life commitment. And I think you could spend a lifetime fully embracing these experiences and still not come close to true understanding. So what you want to do with anything you do in life is, if you're going to pursue something, you should try to surround yourself with the best people in that field. And like we've all come to the agreement, when it comes to the supernatural, Andrew Lake, Tom D'Agostino, Keith Johnson, guys like this, I mean, it's definitely a tremendous help.
Well, there's certainly something to be said for the fact that so many people watch these paranormal reality shows on television and then end up picking up equipment and getting into the field themselves. It's not just because they're watching it and saying, hey, that looks easy, I think I can do that. There's, just like you're saying, once you see it and once you start getting involved in it, you can't just be casual about it. You're not just going to be like, oh, it's Wednesday night, time to watch Ghost Hunters. It's going to consume you. It's going to be something that you're researching, you're going to look up online, You're going to read books about, you're going to even go in to see the crappiest paranormal activity horror movie. You're still investing yourself into the topic and into the genre.
Yeah. By the way, I did spend the weekend watching Paranormal Activity 2 and 3, just to sort of get in the fictional horror movie.
I didn't hate them as much as I did the first one.
No, I actually liked part 2 better than part 3. I don't know if Christian's seen them, but
I haven't seen. I've only seen the first one thus far. But Jason and I were just talking about this the other day, so I've got to catch up.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the second one is good. I didn't really mind the third one as much, but I don't know where they're going to go from here with 4 or 5 episodes in the series, planned out. I think that's just a little overkill, but that's what happens. We can lament the great horror franchises of the past and how they're getting crapped on by people who just want to see strings pulling doors closed.
To go to your point, though, Tim, your bigger point, it is absolutely amazing in how many conversations Jason and I, and I'm sure you have had with people just that have noticed this incredible explosion of paranormal media. I mean, there isn't a cable network without at least one, if not 2, supernatural-themed programs. I mean, even Jason and I, here in Rhode Island have one, and I don't know what's if we're feeding into something or something's feeding into us. I'm not sure, but it's just an unbelievable time for the exploration of and understanding of the supernatural. And if there ever was a time where there could be kind of a revolution in the way people look at this subject and think about it, I think we're looking at it right now. This could definitely be that time.
Well, the flip side of that, too, though, is especially a lot of the religious types will say that we're actually just, the tools of the devil investigating this stuff, and that we're actually being controlled. And it's not really a good thing that there is this explosion of interest in the subject.
Well, that too. I mean, of course, you mix the media into it, you mix entertainment into it, and just like the spiritualist movement, you've got, unfortunately, fraudulent, stuff out there too.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's where we try to kind of differ with at least this episode of Haunted Our Eye. And I would say the first one, the first one features a ghost hunt. It doesn't feature any evidence on camera, but it does. We try to relay our personal experiences, and we got a little bit of flack for that. Oh well, you got a personal experience. You saw pale legs light in the woods, but you didn't get it on camera. Well, after that, we sort of said, well, you know what? We're not going to try to capture ghosts on camera.
Yeah.
To me, the ultimate truth is in the history and the facts.
I agree, and
the fact that these stories remain.
If you are, I don't see what the difference is in terms of impact if you're able to go to a haunted location and actually capture a ghost on camera, or if you're able to absolutely physically track down the story of the ghost and all the way back to its source and to its quote-unquote reality. I think either one, either avenue is full of a lot of realization and can bring a lot of can shed a lot of light to something that even if people try to come up with somewhere down the line somebody explains what ghosts are, this will always be fraught with mystery. It'll always be something that tugs at our hearts and our minds and makes us wonder the big questions, and that to me is really par for the course as to why I personally am involved in this field. Is no matter how close you get, the questions never stop coming. It's an endlessly fascinating world, the supernatural, and in utilizing the many legends of Dolly Cole kind of as a template to understand that or to dive in. It was an absolute blast and something I know Jason and I are very proud of.
And we're all, the three of us are all at different stages of our beliefs, especially in ghosts and the ghost end of what we're talking about. We're all in different avenues of belief right now. And for myself personally, I feel like I've reached the point where I'm convinced that they do exist and that's enough for me. I don't need any more proof, and I don't need to prove it to anybody else. It no longer bothers me when I can relay my experiences to a person and they scoff and refuse to believe it. It used to really get on my nerves, but now I'm like, you know what, dude? That's your gig. I've got mine. I know what I believe. I know what happened to me. And so I've kind of made peace with the fact that not everybody's going to be in that mode that I'm in. So to me, it's more important to keep sharing these stories as a legend and as part of our culture. And
right.
it's less about the hard data. And I think that you're probably going to find as you get into these, as you said, you had the ghost hunt in the first one and not in the second one because you don't need them there. It's almost like the ghost hunt was just doing your due diligence in the research of the stories that you heard. It's just kind of fact checking what you'd already heard, but you don't need that to have this exist because being a legend, it already exists. It's already there, and that's something tangible.
And the other thing, the first episode, there was a lot. The reason to show the ghost hunt in the first one was because part of the episode of the first one is about the culture, the modern culture of the paranormal.
Mm-hmm.
And as we all know, especially when we were profiling Brian Harnois, Brian is obviously one of the people who kind of originated and popularized that methodology. So to cover Brian Harnois' history and story and not document his methodology, I think wouldn't have been the right path. But like you said, in the Legends of Dolly Cole, our second documentary that airs a week from today on PBS, it's much more about the bigger questions. It's much more about, at the end of the day, the bigger stories that transcend the actual apparitions or the ghosts or the experiences themselves, the mythology that drives all these things, whether it be UFOs, ghosts, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you can trace all the supernatural events back to mythology and back to human storytelling, and that, to me, is the root of all of this. To understand the supernatural, I do truly believe you need to understand the necessity for the stories, the necessity for the myths.
Absolutely. And this is the kind of thing that I think is lost on a lot of people. I think once they have their personal experience and they have enough of them, they'll start to get more into this mode. But I think it's something that's being lost is we're getting away from the story part of a good ghost story. So hopefully we can make a return to that. And, of course, Haunted RI is a great way to do that. As you said, it airs next Saturday, May 5th at 7 p.m. on Rhode Island PBS. Now, what's the plan for the future with any more episodes coming up?
Good question. Well, we've been kind of tossing ideas back and forth, but we do have another half-hour segment that'll probably air hopefully over the summer. That will be some shorter segments that we filmed that just didn't make up an hour's episode. But who knows? The future is wide open.
Well,
I'll throw a little nugget out there. I would say that definitely an avenue that I am personally pretty obsessively exploring right now is ufology, and the connections between ufology and traditional, ghosts or hauntings, whatever we want to call it. I find there's a lot of amazing connections, but I believe it's the next logical step. And spending time with Matt Moniz and for instance, sitting down and having some time to talk and pick Matt Moniz's brain has been absolutely mind-boggling. And I find ufology to be endlessly fascinating. So Jason has a huge knowledge base when it comes to ufology. So definitely something, who knows what the future may bring.
Well, I'm looking forward to that future, and hopefully we can get you guys to come in here sometime. We can just do a whole show where we can just ponder some different theories and different approaches. And actually, I'd love to have you guys come down for the next Backyard podcast episode where we can really hang loose and just be completely uncensored.
Man, is that over the summer? When will that be?
We were hoping to do it sometime around like Memorial Day and doing it as a pay-per-view on our website. Charge people like $1 to watch it with all the money going to a worthy cause.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah, so we'll work on that, and we'll let you know. We'll keep you up to date.
Cool. Well, we'd love to be a part of it. Thanks so much.
All right, and thank you guys for what you do, and keep us up to date with what's coming up in the future.
Thank you, Tim. This has been a real treat. Thank you, and thank you to all your listeners.
All right, we'll talk again soon. Have a great night. There we go. Pressing the right buttons. That is Jason Mayoh and Christian White of Haunted RI. Check out the upcoming second episode, The Legend of Dolly Cole, Saturday night, May 5th. That's next Saturday night at 7 p.m. on Rhode Island PBS. And then after you're done watching that, you can flip over to the Bio channel. My Ghost Story will be on at 10 o'clock, which will be, actually, you should probably just DVR My Ghost Story or tape it or, hook up your Betamax. Whatever kind of technology you use, you should probably do that because you don't want to miss Spooky Southcoast at 10 o'clock. But then again, you could always listen to the podcast. So you see, we take care of you. We make sure that there's always a variety of different ways that you can get the program. And, of course, every episode of the program is available from iTunes and wherever podcasts are found. You can also watch the video archives on YouTube as well. The YouTube channel is really picking up in popularity. And just remember, too, if you're watching it on YouTube, we don't mess with the video. We kind of just let it roll in the background. So you do get like the news breaks and the commercials, but you can always just kind of skip over that. It only takes a few seconds to buffer in today's technology. And Spooky TV, of course, is a great way to catch the show live as well. That's how I watched Spirit Connections with Tiffany Rice when I was on my way to the studio. I had my phone running it on the Ustream app. So it works out a variety of ways. No excuse to miss anything that we're involved in. We're going to force ourselves down your throat 24/7. That's the Spooky South Coast way. And again, as I said earlier in the show, there are only 4 tickets left for the upcoming Lizzie Borden event, The Dead of Summer, on August 25th. It's our next Legend Trips event. There may be some before then. There may be some after then that come up, but that's the next one that we actually have booked and planned. So if you want to get involved with that, definitely go to legendtrips.com right now and buy those tickets because they are not going to stick around. It's limited to only 25 people, and as I said, only 4 are left. If you miss out this time, don't worry. We'll have more events, especially more events at Lizzie Borden's coming up in the future, but just be sure to join the mailing list at legendtrips.com so that you can find out about all these events first. Like I said earlier in the show, the event here coming up on August 25th sold out almost halfway through the pre-sale alone. And it's only going to grow as that mailing list keeps growing and as our event attendees keep growing. And thanks again to everybody that came out to Graveyard Shift at Slater Mill. It was a fabulous time. There's going to be all kinds of evidence and photos and videos and whatever else happened during the course of the night up on our website, legendtrips.com, as well as airing on an upcoming episode of 30 Odd Minutes. So stay tuned to your local cable access channel for that and 30oddminutes.com as well. That was probably, I've watched pretty much every episode of 30 Odd Minutes over the years, and that was probably one of the most entertaining ones to watch from the sidelines before I even sat down in the stool. I kind of didn't want to have to go be part of the show because I was enjoying watching it so much. So check it out. You're going to love that. We'll be back next week to talk more about the paranormal. Working on a few different things. Stay tuned to SpookySouthcoast.com because we'll put up all the information as it comes to us. And hopefully next week we'll have everybody back on the show. So until then, we want you all to stay spooktacular.
First with local news, talk, and sports. This is WBSM New Bedford, AM 1420. WBSM, a Cumulus station.
From ABC News, I'm Todd Ed. One person was killed when high winds came in fast and furious through downtown St. Louis, where Cardinals fans were celebrating an afternoon victory, and then chaos. A tent set up outside a sports bar was lifted up, sending chairs and an amplifier into the air. Spokesperson Jamie Gagliarducci says some of the injured were brought to her hospital.
9 people brought via EMS, 11 walk-ins for a total of 20. 3 people are in serious condition, and 17 are in fair to good condition.
The winds blew through in the afternoon. Lots of laughs at the annual White House Correspondents Association dinner Saturday night, where comedian Jimmy Kimmel poked fun at President Obama.
Mr. President, you remember